Welcome to the Dream Show. I'm Jane Teresa Anderson, and this is episode 285. And my guest today is Lisa Marchiano. Now, Lisa is a Jungian Analyst, she's an author, and she's also a podcaster. So she's the co-host and co-creator of the popular depth psychology podcast, This Jungian Life. And she's also the author of Motherhood, The Vital Spark, and her new book, which we're going to talk about today, which is called Dream Wise. Lisa is on the faculty of the C.G. Jung Institute of Philadelphia, and she lectures and teaches widely. She lives and practices in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which is where she's speaking to me from today. So let's just go straight to our chat with Lisa. Welcome to the Dream Show, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. You've just written a new book, Dream Wise.
Yes, I wrote it with my podcast co-hosts. We're three Jungian analysts, and we wrote this book called Dream Wise, Unlocking the Meaning of Your Dreams. And I'm so excited about it.
I've almost finished reading it, and I'm excited about it too. I really like the way that you've presented dreams from a Jungian point of view, and very concisely and everyday language that people can really absorb and understand. And we'll talk about it a bit later. But
yes,
as always, all our guests bring a dream. So I'd love to hear your dream.
Sure. Well, this is a dream that I had a little over a month ago. And the real life context that you should know is that I've recently started a graduate program. I'm getting a doctorate in psychoanalysis. And I've been looking forward to it literally for years because I couldn't join the cohort last time. So this, was coming up. I've been super excited about it. And I found that I started dreaming about it before it happened, which is interesting and not entirely typical for me. So here's the dream. It's my weekend to go to Boston for my graduate program. I'm on a bus. I think I know what stop to get off that will get me close to the school. But when the bus stops, I'm suddenly confused. There is some transfer I'm supposed to make, but I'm suddenly not at all confident about it. In the dream, I think to myself that this is a dream about my unconscious fears about not knowing what I'm doing and looking like a fool.
I love that. It wasn't exactly a lucid dream, but it was an analysis within the dream while it was happening.
It's a self-referential dream.
Self-referential dream. Do you say that doesn't happen often to you?
It happens sometimes. I mean, I think when you do dream work, you get those little kind of side conversations fairly often, but it doesn't happen too often.
Sometimes mine are more like the other characters are saying to me, are you sure you're not dreaming? Oh, no, there's no way I'm dreaming. Are you sure? No way I'm not dreaming.
That's great. That's never happened to me.
For a dream professional, it's a bit embarrassing, though. I love your dream. So there were lots of stops, and you got off at the stop that you thought might be the correct one, but then there were a number of different transfers, and you were totally confused. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I've written at the top. Unfortunately, I don't remember why I wrote this. But I wrote at the top, King's Cross and Pancras, which makes me think that must have been referred to in the dream. Like, it's almost like that was the title of the dream.
And that's in London. So, and you're in Philadelphia.
That's right. That's a tube stop in London. I think it's a fairly big one.
It's a main station as well. It's an overground and an underground from what I remember.
Okay. Yes, that sounds right.
What do you associate with London?
I really love London. It's both like so ancient, but it's also very, there's like, you turn around and you see a little scrap of a Roman wall, but at the same time, it's kind of got all of the latest thinking and fashion. So it's kind of both very modern and very ancient. And I love all the history everywhere in the city. I love the sense that there's ancient stuff there. And it does have a very good transportation system, which is enjoyable to use. However, it's kind of a confusing city from the standpoint of navigating it, especially by car, of course, famously.
Yes. Yeah, I live in Australia, as you know, and I was born and bred in England. And in Australia, there's very little built history, older
Yeah.
than 200 years. So I
Yes.
always notice that too. But what you
Yeah.
described there sounds very much like the territory of dream work, doesn't it? There's this ancient, almost mystical
Yeah.
layer that, or even if it's just our own individual past, there's a sense of communal ancient mystery, and yet you
Yeah.
said also in London there's a sense of something that's new and exciting.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit, about how that might relate to dream work being past, present, and future.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's really true, and I have the same thing here. You know, in the States, there's no real built history that's more than a couple hundred years old. But it's always so stunning to me to be in Europe and just so yeah. I mean, and like just to riff on that for a minute, like you know, so you're in London and there's the Houses of Parliament, which is this kind of gorgeous Victorian building, and then there's the Tower of London, which is ancient, ancient, ancient. It was built after the Norman conquest, and and so much kind of happened there, and but then you turn around and there's these stunning new buildings that are made all out of glass, and so you have this sense of there just being kind of layer upon layer upon layer. And of course, that's one of the ways that we think about the psyche, especially as Jungians, is there is an old kind of inherited structure. You know, Jung had a dream, an important dream that helped point him towards coming up with the concept of the collective unconscious. And it was a dream where he was in a house and he went down a layer and there were older things there, and then he went down again and there were older things there, and then he went into the basement and there were just these kinds of primitive human skulls. And he thought, well, that's a metaphor for the psyche. So we have within us kind of our reptilian brain, for example, and then we have our prefrontal cortex. So we have the layers within us, both in even just in terms of the ontology, and then of course that's also true in the more metaphorical sense that Jung was talking about, that we have the access to this deeper strata of the unconscious that he called the collective unconscious.
That's with us all the time, just as in London, you can walk down the road and you can see something that's 600 years old or whatever. It's still there, even though it's past, and even though it's way in the basement, it's still affecting us in the same way with the psyche, that even though we might imagine that something is in the basement, no, it's right here with us. It's affecting how we respond in life.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I wonder why it was King's Cross station as opposed to any other station you might have brought up in your dream. Anything about being cross or at a crossroads or kings?
Yeah, I mean, it does feel, what resonates is, the kind of crossroads feeling. Yeah, it does feel in some sense like a crossroads.
Yeah. And are you, do you have more, the dream was a month ago, do you have more of a sense now that you do know which direction you're going in, that you're confident about doing the course, or are you still a little bit wavering at the crossroads?
It's not that I wasn't confident about doing the course. It's that I was aware. I mean, it's interesting that I had this dream, because I've since actually been to my first weekend in Boston, and it's like now reading this dream, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Because what happened when I went to Boston, which is not that surprising for something like this, it's like, wow, this is how do I want to say it? It's going to be transformational. I can tell that it's going to be an initiatory experience. Now, I've already been initiated in a sense. I'm already a psychoanalyst, but I'm entering another territory, really. I'm entering a new territory that is really unknown to me, because I'm getting exposed to a very different school of thought, psychoanalytically. I'm getting exposed to people who've been trained very differently than I've been trained. And, this stuff is all deep. So, I mean, the Jungian stuff is really deep, but what I picked up that first weekend, it's like, whoa, Jung didn't do this, you know? I'm not, I'm a newbie. Most of the other people there know more about this particular kind of psychoanalysis than I do. So it's that sort of wonderful, terrifying feeling of being the fool, being the one who doesn't know.
Yeah, interesting.
And yeah, God.
I was just going to say, you mentioned being on new territory, and I guess in the dream you were in London, which was different territory as well. May I ask what if it's not Jungian, what's the approach?
By the way, I just want to say, it's in the dream. I'm in Boston, which is where it is. But there's this kind of conflation with London. Yeah. It's a school of psychoanalysis known as modern psychoanalysis, and it feels like as I'm learning about it, and I'm just beginning to learn about it, it's almost like a perfect complement to Jung. It's really interesting. It's funny because I was just saying to my supervisor, I was like, I really need to know this, and that's what I don't know. And then I went there, and it's like, oh, this is all about that.
Recognition. Yeah.
So it's sort of, it feels, it has that feeling of, sort of being somewhat fateful. So I think what resonates about the dream, having actually been through this weekend, and by the way, it's not the last dream I had about my graduate program. I've had several more since, but what resonates about it is, well, first of all, this idea of being very unsure of myself, because I've been an analyst, a Jungian analyst, for 13 years, so I'm an expert, and suddenly there, I don't know anything. Like, I know nothing. So it's supposed to be a comparative program, but it just so happens that most of the people in the program are actually trained in the modern school. And so they all are experts in that. And so really it's this sense of like being in this place where most of the time I feel pretty competent. I mean, the great thing actually about being a therapist, especially an analyst, is I never feel totally competent.
Especially in the land of dreams.
Right, which I like. I like that because it would get boring if I always felt like I knew what I was doing. But I mean, I really, and it's like I don't have any status there. In my own community, people sort of know me, but like no one, So it's this like, whoa, I really don't know what I'm doing. There's that sense of kind of disorientation in the dream.
Yes, disorientation and excitement as well, if you allow yourself the excitement. Yeah. And so that also riffs on, I hear what you said, the dream took place in Boston, but it's just that you labeled it King's Cross.
Yes. Right.
And so that also adds that modern level again, doesn't it? When you described London, you said, well, it's got the ancient stuff and it's got the new and modern. So you've got the modern approach that you're studying in your graduate school now.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Boston, of course, Boston is where my graduate program is, but it's also one of the older cities in America. It's historic.
Yeah, it's got a great academic reputation as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's all really exciting, Lisa. So you're stepping into add this whole new area into your psychoanalytical palette at the time when you're publishing a book based entirely on Jungian, your Jungian approach to dreams.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'll say too, like it's academic and professional, but of course this work is always deeply personal. So the thing that I struggle with as a clinician, and not surprisingly, I also struggle with it in my life, is like what to do about aggression, what to do when someone's angry at me, what do I do with my own anger, how do I respond to that? I'm not very good at dealing with clients who come in and are angry with me. I don't turn into a puddle or retaliate or anything, but I don't think I really know how to use it constructively. And guess what? That is pretty much the focus of modern psychoanalysis.
And you did know that stepping in, or you didn't know that
I
stepping
didn't know
in?
that. I didn't know that. And the thing is, I mean, so, you know, if you could imagine some of the depth of the dream, I mean, of course, it's like there's a surface level where it's like, yeah, you're going into a new environment. It's going to be challenging. You're putting yourself back in the student role. So of course you're kind of nervous, and, you know, it's almost like a school dream. Like you show up and you haven't done the assignment or something like that. But I think on a deeper level, you know, it's going to really challenge me to become comfortable with my own anger and aggression in a way that I really haven't before. So, you know, when you know, the classes are sort of run as process groups and people are sitting around, they're like, that really made me angry when you said that. And like, nobody flinches. It's like, I'm like, wow, we don't do that in Young World. You know, that's so cool. So anyway, I just think that my psyche, I think, intuited that I am going to some really new place, and I think like, oh, this is going to be easy. I know where I'm going, and that I can. And then I think it's interesting too that the thing hangs around a transfer. I have to make a transfer, and what do I say? I'm supposed to. There is some transfer I'm supposed to make, but I'm suddenly not at all confident about it.
Yes. So how many ways to look at transfer? How do you take it?
I mean, I agree with you. I think there's lots of ways, you know. I mean, one is, can I transfer my skills? Can I transfer my expertise? Maybe I can't. Why are you?
Or maybe you
thinking?
can. There was a sense of, you know, in the way that you described it, the transfer it felt like a one-way journey. I've come this far, and now I'm at this crossroads, and now I've got to make this transfer, and that's where I'm feeling I'm not so confident, because it's like, once I've made that transfer, like crossing a bridge, I'm not going back. There's a change. And then, you know, you could also play on when you study a course, you are the person is transferring knowledge or whatever to you. So there's a sort of transfer there. But the sense that I got when you read out the dream was, whoa, this is going over a bridge. This is burning the boats, that kind of feeling. And anybody would be concerned, or we would take a moment to think about that.
And it's also like my existing knowledge gets me so far, right? Like the bus, I'm on the bus, and that's fine. I get far, and I think it's going to take me close to the school. But then I get off the stop, and like there's something else I have to do, and I don't know what it is. Yeah.
So the stop. And is there a sense that, as you say, you're on the bus so far? Was there a sense that the transfer was to another bus or an individual journey? Did you get a feeling?
You know, I don't have a feeling about that. It might have even been like, you know, maybe a totally different mode of transportation, you know, like maybe I have to change to a train or something like that. But I don't really remember, and it's not in the text.
So there's a couple of things there, and just as an aside, because it suddenly pops up for me, King's Cross, and you've just been talking about anger and dealing with anger and learning about anger, so that fits with that. And the other one is that... So, excuse me, if you look at your dream, I'm on a bus and I'm imagining it's taken me the whole way, but actually, oh no, there's a stop, there's something that I have to do. So your unconscious mind is aware that there's something extra to do, or something to think about, or something to take on board, or something to change. And that sort of suggests that that unconsciously, you know, the course is going to be a little bit different to what you were imagining, and that turned out to be the case. I love the way that often we are so much wiser than we think we are. That you find yourself having chosen the ideal course for exploring anger and everything else. So that's really beautiful.
Yeah, you know, the other thing I think about this dream, this is very Jungian, is the journey on the bus feels very sort of in an ego place. Like, I know this bus route, I know where I'm going, I can, you know, I just have to ride it 3 stops, and then, but it's like then it's like, oh, now what do I do? And it's like the ego can only take you so far.
Yes.
So I'm in that, you know, again, a very sort of initiatory place of my ego knowledge has run out.
Yes.
Now there's some other method of transportation. I don't know what it is, or if I do, I've forgotten it now. And I don't know what it is. I don't know which one. I'm in that state where I can no longer rely on ego.
And that's a good place to be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a good place to be. It is a good place to be.
And your dream
Yeah.
helps you to see that
Mm-hmm.
as stepping into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
That is really the number one key for progressing in life, is stepping into the unknown sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice at my advanced age to finally feel somewhat more comfortable with that, because I mean, it is, a little nerve-wracking to be in this position, but I also know how good it is. So I'm like, bring it on,
How many years is the course?
It's 2 years of coursework and then a dissertation.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. It sounds like you'll really enjoy it. So we're kind of not leaving the Jungian bus behind, because you will be integrating that into what you do, and probably teaching the others as well, because they introducing it to them, which will be part of your role there. And you're also promoting your book. What gave you the idea to write Dreamwise? I mean, to write a book, 3 authors is perhaps more challenging than 1 author. Talk to me a little bit about that.
It did present certain challenges. I mean, so the 3 of us have a podcast called This Jungian Life, and every week on the podcast we take some topic and discuss it with a Jungian lens. So, for example, we might talk about, we did one episode about American football, and talked about, what Jung had to say about the psychology of crowds and sublimation and all kinds of other things. But, sometimes the topics are very kind of core Jungian concepts. Sometimes they're more concepts about therapy and the practice of therapy. And sometimes they're, kind of things to do with the current political situation or whatever. And then at the end, we always discuss a listener's dream. So that's a really fun part of the podcast. People send us their dreams. We have thousands and thousands of dreams. And so in 2020, we started Dream School, which is an online 12-month course that teaches people how to work with their dreams. Yeah. So that was going so well. And I was so excited about what we did with that I was like, I think we could write a book about it. And, everyone loved the idea. So we set out, and in a way, it's a little bit like this dream. It's like, yay! Isabella Rossellini has like a farm, I think, somewhere, and there's this wonderful interview with her, and the interviewer says, "What made you start the farm?" And she goes, "Optimism and ignorance." And I was like, that is my motto. That's my credo. Optimism and ignorance. I was like, yay! Let's write a book on dream I didn't know what I was getting into, but I was incredibly optimistic about it. So what was great about it, like any project like this, it kind of took on a life of its own. And where it led us is in this direction that I'm so excited about, which is, there are some great popular books about Jungian dream interpretation, or I don't want to say popular, I want to say accessible, because I'm thinking about Inner Work by Robert Johnson, which is just a really wonderful kind of text. And then there's also a great book by Edward Whitmont and Sylvia Pereira called Dreams, A Portal to the Source, which is written for analysts, but it's fairly accessible, and it's just really good. But as good as those 2 books are, they don't really kind of break it down. It's like there's this, and then you do this. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I really get excited, or rather, maybe I should say that I feel like my joy and talent is in explaining difficult concepts in accessible language. Beautiful. That's kind of what I want to do. That's sort of my life mission. And so I wanted to try to do that with dream interpretation. And I kept saying, Deb and I did the main drafting of the book, and I kept on saying to her, we're writing a cookbook. Like, first you do this, and then you do this, and then after that you do this. And, a good recipe is very explicit about what you have to do when.
Yes, I love that.
And, the other metaphor I would sometimes use when we were talking about it is like, how would you tell someone how to tie their shoes? Like, because here's the thing, like we interpret dreams on the podcast all the time. I do my own dream work, although I usually have no idea what my dreams mean. and then I do it for a living. Like I like interpret at least a dream a day. But sometimes it's like, how do I know what I know?
Very hard to backtrack. Yes.
I would ask myself, how did I thought this and I came up with that, and usually that's kind of an intuitive process. But how did I know that? What was it that made me, because I'll say it and the person will go, yeah, that's it. I'll be like, well, how did I know that? What did I do? What was I doing when I did that? And so I was really trying to, we were really trying to kind of go there, like do that with the book. Is really kind of reverse engineer the intuition.
Yes, that's amazing. I love that, reverse engineer the intuition, because the intuition knows already, and then you've got to go back and take the bus to get there, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You did it beautifully. That is the end result that you've got, and we'll come back to that again in a minute. But you said that it was still challenging working with 3 people. So was there still some? Was it hard to get 3 people writing the same recipe?
Well, I think what really wound up happening is that Deb and I did most of the writing, and I wrote the first draft, and then Deb is a wonderful editor, so she just did all of this amazing editing and put in this beautiful language. And Joseph was sort of pulled him in on really hard questions, and when we needed a particular dream, or he was really helpful on the chapter on Anima and Animus. So he was a kind of vital contributor, but Deb and I were the hands-on drafters.
Yeah. It sounds like you each had your specialized areas and worked together well from that. Yeah.
But yeah, like Deb and I sometimes, we disagreed on things and we had to kind of hammer it out and that sort of thing. But I think the end result is, 1,000 times better for it.
It's fabulous. It really is great. For people listening in, the end of the book, or the last section, lists 69 keys, and it's kind of almost like a step through, like you said there, isn't it? Like take step 1, by the time you get to step 69, you've got a good handle on your dream. Did it just turn out to be 69 steps, or was 69 a kind of mythical number that you chose?
No, it was totally, that the idea of adding, because the keys are also sprinkled throughout the chapters, and the idea of adding the keys was kind of inspired by our editor at Sounds True. She edited my previous 2 books too, and she's always really interested in like taking the knowledge and making it applicable. So I was trying to figure out how to do that. And I had this idea that these almost kind of little prompts, and then 69 just totally happened. For a little while it was less than that, and then I added a couple in, and then it wound up being 69. And the great thing I will say is that, because now I use the keys when I'm working with my dreams. And you don't need to work through all 69. Like if you were going to go through 69 prompts to understand a dream, people would be like, oh my God. But usually if you just start and I find that something often opens and shifts if I just do, I don't know, between like 5 and 10, just kind of random. Because the thing is that the problem with dream interpretation, the thing that makes it so difficult is that you're wedded to your ego attitude. And that's why I can work very facilely with someone else's dreams, but my own dreams, my ego attitude is always in the way. So the trick is, how do you get out under your ego attitude? And that's exactly what those prompts and the keys are meant to do. So it's like, well, now look at it from this perspective. Okay, maybe that didn't yield much. Look at it from this perspective. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. So it's just, and of course that's what we do when we work with dreams. I mean, that's what you were just doing with me a minute ago. But hopefully this kind of systematizes it so that,
yes,
you can sort of walk through it yourself.
Exactly. Well, you've done it beautifully. I know when I get stuck with one of my dreams, the key for me is, now imagine this wasn't your dream. Imagine a client brought it to you. Oh, well, then I'm straight. That's really easy. I can do that. And what questions would I ask her? Oh, yeah. Right, and then you put yourself in the hot seat. But you've taken it further than that. And I love that. It's really, really good. Did your own dreams inform you or help you or guide you while you were writing?
I'm trying to think. Yeah. I feel like I did have a dream about about this book at some point. It was a really interesting dream, and I'm going to see if I can remember it. It actually was, the upshot of the dream felt like it was about, don't get too smart thinking that you can crack dreams. It was a little bit of one of those.
Yeah.
It was like, don't get too full of yourself, Lisa. That was kind of, it involved a colony on the dark side of the moon and a talking rat.
Oh, I love talking animals.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Yeah. So that's the talking animals when it's kind of transferring from being an animal energy into a human energy, and it's an animal energy with a voice, something becoming more conscious. Yeah. But that's good advice for anybody, I think, regarding their dreams, isn't it? Because you're, accessing the unconscious.
Being humble. Being humble.
Being humble, because there's this tiny, weeny part of you that walks around during the daytime, the ego, that thinks it knows exactly what it's doing. And there's all this amazing, all the rest of London in there.
Yeah.
Would you like to just quickly mention your other two books? I think you've done The Vital Spark and is it Motherhood?
Motherhood, yeah, and both of those are by Sounds True. So Motherhood was my first book, and it's called Motherhood: Facing and Finding Yourself, and it's about motherhood as a psychological growth experience.
Yeah.
And I use fairy tales and some dreams in there too, and anecdotes from client material and others, and I read a lot of mom memoirs when I was writing it, and it's really special to me. It was my first book. It's the book that kind of made me an author, and it took me, I was literally writing it over 2 decades, and then I wrote The Vital Spark, totally different process because I wrote that one really quickly, but that is also has a special place in my heart because in some sense it's a really personal book. It's about basically it's about women's shadow and the way that we can get cut off from our fiercer qualities and the importance of reclaiming those. And then the new one that I'm super, super, super excited about.
And where can people buy it from, Dreamwise? I know it's not out quite yet, but people can pre-order, can't they?
Yes, it comes out in the States November 12th. And I don't know, usually they delay the release in Australia and other parts of the world by at least a few weeks. So they never tell me, so I don't know. But of course, if you're an ebook reader, you can get it on November 12th. I love ebooks actually. So you can check out Amazon. You can also, I'll tell you, we have a beautiful website. The designer just did a beautiful job for the book. It's called dreamwisebook.com. And there are pre-order links there. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff too. We're going to be, to kind of celebrate the publication of the book, we're going to be doing a couple of things that I'm super excited about. We have a dreamography project. So every month we're going to be looking at a particular type of dream or sort of theme and dream image and just exploring it. So this month, for example, it's dog dreams.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
That's going to be in October. And then now we're starting to collect wedding dreams because those are the dreams we're going to look at in November. And we'll probably look at I lost the baby dreams and I showed up naked at work dreams and that kind of thing. Just, things that a lot of snake dreams. We'll definitely have to talk about snake dreams. So you can submit your dog dream, or right now it's dog dreams. It's going to switch over soon to wedding dreams at the site, dreamwisebook.com. And then starting early next year, we're going to begin a dream telepathy project. So we're going to experiment with dream telepathy, and we invite you to join us. You can put your name on the mailing list, and we will let you know when we will be attempting to transmit an image.
Transfer an image. Transfer.
And you can see if you manage to dream of the thing that we're thinking of, and we'll report back on that.
That's absolutely fantastic. We're not finished yet, but I will make sure that link is also a hard link in the text that accompanies this. And I'm sure we have listeners all over the world, and I'm sure most of them will be rushing off to do that because it's right up their street, right up their alley.
Yeah.
I guess just this is just me being nosy, the course that you're about to do now, the graduate course, is there a dream component in that?
I don't really know because I know so little about modern analysis, but they've certainly mentioned, dreams have been mentioned. And it's very like it grew right out of Freud, right? So I am sure that, yes, I'm sure there will be a component, and that's going to be really interesting to see what I learn.
What you learn and what you bring and what you bring as well. Yeah. Well, it's been absolutely fabulous meeting you and talking about your book.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to see how it goes, and I'm excited to hear how your dreamography projects go as well.
Yes, we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And I also wish you all the best with your graduate program.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Bye.
I can certainly recommend getting a copy of Dreamwise. I was fortunate enough to get an advanced copy, of course, and I enjoyed it very much. And I'm sure as avid dreamers and dream interpreters, you will do the same. So it's called Dreamwise, Unlocking the Meaning of Your Dreams. And it's by Lisa Marchiano, Deborah Stewart and Joseph Lee. It's published by Sounds True, and it's due to be released in early November. But of course, you can pre-order. And the website that Lisa mentioned, which is dedicated to the book and also has the pre-order links, is dreamwisebook.com. So that's all one word, dreamwisebook.com. And that's where you can also go to take part in the dreamography experiments that she mentioned, which sound a lot of fun and a lot of informative in the long run too. For my own website, janeteresa.com, that's Teresa without an H, is where you can go to listen to every episode of the Dream Show that's ever been. Although, of course, you can always catch the latest ones on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you choose to listen to your podcasts. JaneTeresa.com is also where you can go to find out about my books and my services and read hundreds of blogs on dreams and dreaming. And my courses on my other website, the Dream Academy, and the address for that is dream-academy-online.com. Thank you for listening to yet another episode of The Dream Show. I'll speak to you next month. I'm Jane Teresa Anderson.